Welcome back. This is part 2 of the Build a Style Arsenal series. We're going to be making some basic brushes today using our elements from last time. So let's jump in. First up, we're going to be doing some vector brushes in the designer persona. So we go to the brushes palette. I've created a Style Arsenal category and just add a new textured intensity brush. We're going to start off by importing the PNG we exported last time. And we're going to use that to make several different brushes just by duplicating and changing some of the parameters. So once you've imported it, you can duplicate it. And since we're here, we might as well go ahead and import our other brush from the desktop, Design Style 2. And with those imported, we can start tweaking the brushes. By double-clicking on the brush thumbnails, we'll bring up the brush engine. And every brush has one of two options. You can either have a stretch or repeat. If you choose the stretch option, it'll take that PNG and warp it over the length of your brush stroke, however long you make that. And so the longer you pull it, the more soft and fuzzy it's going to get. So that's kind of nice if you want to do a brush stroke that looks painterly. But if you want to maintain those lovely details of the brush, you're going to want to use the repeat. Now if we just click the repeat button by itself, it's going to literally make copies of the brush along the path. And that may be great. In fact, we'll probably keep one of those. But we can also adjust the head offset and the tail offset by dragging, there's a little, hard to see it perhaps, but there's little dotted pink lines or red lines. You can drag those toward the center of the stroke from either side. And what you want to do is find a connection between the two sides that looks more or less seamless if you can. Obviously some scans will look better than others, but that looks pretty good. What this does is it maintains the ends of the brush, so you get the beginning and the end of the stroke, but it will repeat whatever is between those two red dotted lines over the course of your stroke. No matter how long you draw it, you'll maintain the pattern. With the brush engine or editor open, let's take a look at this third brush. You'll notice that for the top two, stretch and repeat are two options, but when I switch to the third one, there's not a way for me to make this turn into a repeat brush. And that's because the original scan was cropped so that it was more vertical than horizontal. In the top two, they're wider than they are tall, but this one is basically a skinny square. And I cannot choose, it will not let me choose the repeat button. Even though I click the button, the preview above continues to be stretched out. So the way to fix this is by exporting a slice that's more horizontal than vertical. None of this is really an issue when you're making pixel brushes, but vector brushes are actually a mask. So everything that you include, all the black area that's included in this slice, is actually going to be read by the vector brush. So the space in front, the space afterwards, the space above and below, all those are going to affect the appearance because you're actually masking off a color when you're making a intensity brush in designer mode. Okay, back in designer persona, I've added in the other brush. You can see that even though it's the same exact size on the scan that I exported, it looks shorter than the original, and that's because it has more on either side of it to show in the preview. So here we have the repeat button. It's now available, and if when I click on it, we can see that the thumbnail above that shows you a preview instantly changes, and you can see how it's adjusted as I change the tail and head offset. So this is important too. You can use one brush and create different types of dotted brushes with varying space between the brushes just by making duplicates and changing the head and tail offset. All right, let's jump on to pixel persona. Pixel brushes function very differently. There's no path that you're mapping an image onto, and so the adjustments are quite different. We're going to make a couple intensity brushes with those two scans and just kind of show some of the ways we can play around. I mean, you could make millions of brushes and no two would be alike. So I'm playing with the rotation jitter on this one. I'm setting it to random. And just play around with size dynamics. I have a tablet with pen pressure sensitivity, so you can do that, or you can set things to random or cycle through if you want the size to pinch from thick to thin. So that's working nice. For the second brush, I'm going to space out the, change the size here. I'm going to space out the brush so we can see the individual instances. But unlike the designer brush, the vector brush, we can actually add rotation to each instance and kind of randomize it so that we get, oops, there we go. Got to have a pixel layer. And so we can actually have each one rotating independently. That just creates some cool effects. And again, you can change the spacing, you can adjust the hardness, the opacity, all kinds of things. And again, just by clicking the duplicate option, or I think if you right click in the brush window, you can just duplicate the brush, make adjustments, retaining the changes from each one. Let's make a more solid one here. And I like that. It's kind of a sketchy kind of brush. That's great for, you know, making lines look like pencil lines or charcoal or something like that. I'm going to give the X and Y scatter a little bit just to create a little more interest on the edges. There you have it. With that single option, we've created all these brushes, and we're just getting started. So hang on to your hats. Here we go. In the next installment, we're going to build on what we did this round and make a bunch of complex brushes in the pixel persona. So I hope you join me then. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. Drop some comments down below if you have questions. I'm happy to answer them. And we'll see you next time.